What's up, guys? It's Richie Rich back yet again, and this time I'm bringing you a review of one of the classic black TV sitcoms from the early 90s towards the late 90s, and this is Family Matters. Be sure to check this out.
It's a rare condition this day and age to read any good news on the newspaper page. And love and tradition of the grand design, some people say.
So, Family Matters. That was actually the wrong way around. Family Matters. A big TV black TV sitcom. Sometimes it's like, I say sometimes unfair to say like black, TV sitcoms because it is just a TV sitcom. But as I mentioned in my past, reviews with like, the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, the Martin and Hanging Mr. Cooper, around that time these all like just busted open around the early 90s, and again, like I said, this was to compete with the other, like, let's just say them Caucasian TV sitcoms like a Seinfeld, like a Friends, like a Frasier, so it was just a way so like when ethnic people could see like someone who looked like them on television, rather than watching these kind of shows which you'd have like them, a guest stars or the token black person. So like, it's like correction. This actually started in the late 1980s. So it was borderline early 90s, and it ran for about 8 seasons towards the late 90s. So it was 1989 all the way to 1998, So it probably is one of the most longest running season or long running black sitcoms during the 90s, because Fresh Prince of Martin were only just about 5 seasons, Hanging Mr. Cooper 5 seasons. Most of the TV sitcoms in there, like the best run they could get was 5 seasons. So this actually went way far beyond. So kudos to Family Matters. Now, like a lot of the TV sitcoms, more specifically the black TV sitcoms around over here, UK, they were not showing these on television networks here. There was a channel back in the day that was called Trouble, and that's where Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Martin occasionally appeared on there, Sister, and Smart Guy would appear on this channel called Trouble. But like I and like maybe a few members, it was a little before we called it the rich team then, nice game with more members, yeah. But we were like scouring around for thinking there was more, other sitcoms in the 90s, and it was only around the time like I was in, my universities and I was studying media. I used to just like sometimes stay back in my after lectures and go to the library and like just like do my research on these other sitcoms, and I found like this as well as I found them other sitcoms, and it's like I started watching this, but what it was I actually the first inkling thing, because I knew about the main character, which I'm gonna go over. I'd always seen pictures of Steve Urkel, like the uber black nerd, what I mean. I'd seen pictures and that because during the nights he became like such a big super phenomenal star, man, who could rival like Will Smith, at his peak, what I mean. So I saw him like on them cereal boxes. I saw the hats, the t-shirts, the merchandise. So I saw the imagery of Steve Urkel, but I didn't know like, where the character originated from or what the TV show Family Matters was all about. So yeah, man, like after like, I was able to, get the, full series, and actually from the start, I watched it from episode 1. And like I said, it runs from 9 seasons. So I just start watching it from the beginning and watching it to the end. And to be fair, I'll give my like main verdict on the whole series and the title character at the end. When I first like was introduced to it, I am not gonna lie, I was not a fan of it. There was just a very different like of slowness pace. I'm not the biggest fan, like comparing it, I'm not the biggest fan of the Cosby Show. Like it definitely brings a lot of what the Cosby Show's like material into this. Obviously being a black family, it says family matters. So you're gonna get a lot of them, certain ingredients from the Cosby Show. So when I first was watching this, I wasn't really like I wasn't really too into it. But it's like as I started to, come back to it, watch certain episodes, fully, and I started to understand and engage more of the story, I was like, this ain't that bad. And one of the notable reasons of this is definitely how this series starts, So like, I'll take you through a kind of history lesson, This show was basically, in what I believe is, it was like another idea to make like another successful black family TV sitcom, just like what they did with Cosby's. They did it with Jefferson's back in the day, and they did it with Sanford and Son, sort of like that, black ethnic family, and they can just like, just basically like a new generation of that, So because Cosby Show was like early 80s and finished around the early 90s, so this was kind of in a weird way like a successor to that, So this starts off very like that kind of like family warm values, in some ways very corny. Some of the episodes they play these kind of like emotional symphony music, when like the dad, who's played by Carl Winslow, who's played by Reginald Johnson, he's like in the original the first part of the series, he's the main title character. That's like, he's the cop, basically how he is in like Die Hard, the first film. He's basically that. It was funny, because like I thought this was like after Die Hard. Like he did Die Hard. No, sorry, it was after Die Hard, but I thought it was before. Like he was just playing the character. He was in Family Matters, and he reprised that like in Die Hard or something. But he's like this because it started around 80 time, roughly around the time Die Hard came out. So I love the the way Reginald Van Johnson plays. Carl Winslow is like he's very similar to how he is in Die Hard and that. Yeah, going back to it, like how it is in the start is it's just a very strong like moral family like cult show. Like typically what you think, because they're based in Chicago. This is based in Chicago, not Chi-Town. This is Chicago in the 90s. So not all this kind of mad aggro that's going on now. It's a quiet suburbs of Chicago and that. And yeah, he's just a regular, guy. He's got his he works as the deputy chief in the police station. He has his loving wife. He has his two, I believe it's Eddie and Laura Winslow. So his two kids. One, I think it is his sister. She has like a child as well, and I don't know, for whatever reason, they disappear like through mid-season. I'll talk about that more later. That was the son Richie. And also who was in there there's a few other members, and also the grandma, Reginald Van Joseph's, the mother to like Carl Winslow's in it, and the main star of itself, Steve Urkel. What's really cool and interesting is Steve Urkel, played by very, very underrated actor Jaleel White. I think like the way Hollywood has like treated him, is kind of thing. Like I said, I will talk about Jaleel White specifically and that, but it really shows, like when you watch these shows, especially as he gets older in these shows, like very, very underrated and talented actor, man. I love how he could do what Martin did, playing like a numerous amount of characters, side by side. That takes very, very skill, super skill to do that. So I'm very, 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 very underrated actor. But yeah, back onto Steve Urkel. He appears like the late side of the first season. So the first season, the first season, there's these kind of like little clips and not clips, but like they have like the intro, you know, that classic intro. It shows the skyline of Chicago, and he's like, you know, I'm not a fan of the 90s. I'm not a fan of that kind of 90s, you know, title intro. I'm more like the, you know, Hanging Mr. Cooper. That's one of my favorites. But you know, it's cool, you know, for what the show is. But like, how can I say, Steve, he appears in like a lot of like the intros, you know, before the, you know, the opening segment before the show starts, you know, and it's like a lot of scenes like Steve trying to get into the house, and the whole, you know, the whole Winslow family is trying to like keep him out, you know what I mean? So like he appears there and there, you know. It's not until the like later end of the season they have this kind of one episode that really stands out, where Steve is trying to date Carl Winslow's daughter, Laura Winslow, played by Keely Shanae Williams. You know what I mean? So that's the super gorgeous girl, the gorgeous black girl of the 90s, man. You know what I mean? Like Tatiana Ali may have had some major competitions. You know what I mean? Because I really love how, like I said, it was such an amazing time how like this and basically Fresh Prince and Martin and Living Single, Hang with Mr. Cooper, they were all playing around the same time. You know what I mean? It's nuts the amount of materials we were gifted during that time, man. And it's like, you know, fast forward to now, man, you only wish you could have that kind of like super exuberant talent. You know what I mean? And on different kind of forms of media, you know. So it would have been an amazing time, you know. And yeah, the only harmful thing is, like I said, the only ones I mainly watched was the, you know, Will Smith's main plane, you know what I mean? So, but yeah, so yeah, they devote an episode where like basically Steve's basically trying, he comes into school, Steve's trying to get a date for the prom. You know what I mean? I think it's the prom or the school dance, you know. So it just comes in. It comes in, and like I said, the way how they make Steve is like, he's gimmicky, but it works. You know what I mean? Because at this time, I keep saying at this time, it was very much, you know, the black culture for the 90s scene was very more of that hip hop thug gangster rap. You know what I mean? So, but as I've said before, you had the other black side, other black side, where you had the, you know, the kind of friendly kind of version of, you know, black people in entertainment, like the, you know, the Kid and Plays and the Will Smiths, you know. Where Jaleel White faded into this is he was just like the first time we'd ever seen like a, you know, like a Pee Wee Herman, but like a black version, you know what I mean, of a nerd. You know, he would wear suspenders, he would wear his like pants all the way up so you could see his socks. He would have these Albert Einstein shoes, and he had these like Dexter Laboratories glasses, you know what I mean? But it works so well with just Jaleel White playing it, you know, playing character. And yeah, man, just these interactions with, like, you know, that scene when he comes into they're at the diner, you know, it's where the kids chill out, you know, around you know, after like you know, between lessons and that, you know, and he's trying to speak to all these girls, trying to go ask for a date, you know, and one girl just kind of like pushes him out of the way. You know what I mean? They don't rate him, man. I think me and Steve got this same kind of thing, man. Like they always want to shut us down, man, and it really hurts me so much. But yeah, he goes on, keeps asking these girls out, and he, you know, gets up to Laura. He's like, "Hi, Laura. You know, I'm Steve." You know. He plays it super nerd, you know. He's so cute the way he's doing it, because I think Jaleel had to be, when he started this, maybe just early teens, and the duration he ends it, because he's on this for almost a decade, you know. He ends it as like, you know, early adulthood, early 20s and that. So it's an extensive show where you see him from a teen growing up into a man, you know what I mean? So it's a great like transformation, you know, because as well, where it was, like I said, where this is obviously different from like Fresh Prince and Martin. Fresh Prince and Martin were only for 5 seasons, and, you know, Will Smith and Martin were already like, you know, early, you know, 20s. They were roughly in their 20s, you know, and you know they were the main title character. Same like Living Single, you know, all the girls in that, you know, what's it, Queen Latifah, what's it, Erika Alexander, both of the Kims, they were all mid-20s, you know. This was one of the main ones where the title character was in his youth, and like, you know, Link in Legend of Zelda, you know, you see him grow up into adulthood, you know, which is really swell. So like you can see from like this episode I mentioned about, you know, like his first like you know, interactions with like, you know, Carl Winslow, played by Reginald Ben Johnson. You know what I mean? Steve's meant to be just the most annoying, buggy guy, you know. He just comes into the house when he wants. He's just got some mad anxiety issues, man. You can never just sit down and chill out. Has a good heart. Like I said, you're never gonna find a nerd who's just a dick, you know. You know what I mean? He has a good heart, you know. He's a good young man, you know. But just being around him, you know what I mean, he could like go collect feathers off a dock and just like bring it in his hand and say, Laura, I was thinking of you and these feathers kind of matched your S. He would do something lame like that, you know. So he was just a constant annoyance to not just only Laura, but the whole Winslow family, and maybe even sometimes the whole, you know, Chicago, you know. And leading on to that, he's like he's kind of like, he has like a lot of that kind of characters like Clark Kent, like he's super clumsy, you know. Like he could just walk and like paintings, like he would stumble, a painting will fall down, he would knock out the TV, then go onto the chair, roll up onto like the window, break the window, you know. Just him in his presence, he would get like everything would just like, you know, get destroyed, you know. And he'd end up saying, this is gonna be my best impression, did I do that, you know, which ended up becoming like a big marketable catchphrase, you know, which was, like I said, every time like Steve would come in and he just, you know, this over sensation, like I'm destroying everything, because how clumsy, you know, how shy, how introverted he is, you know. That became like a great, you know, like marketing tool for this like super new character which had never been seen before. So like, yeah, like I will talk about more Steven later, but let me talk about specifically you know, Eddie and Laura, played by Keely, Cheyenne William and Darius McKay. You know, so like as Steve is like, you know, Steve's like the main, you know, because once he makes his first appearance in the late first season, he just becomes a regular. He's not always just in the intro. He now becomes like a permanent stay in the show, and they do episodes focused on him, you know. So you know, I mean, like Steve goes into the same school that Laura and Eddie go in, you know. How Eddie is like, he's kind of like, I wouldn't say he's not. He was very. If you look at it from this side, Eddie, played by Darius McKay, he is in some ways the stereotypical black guy of the '90s. You know, he's got his high top fade. You know, he's got his bombastic stereo and that, and you know, he would rather get laid than get paid. You know, I mean, he's just with that whole, you know, era, you know, of like, you know, goals. You know, that's what's it. It's happened to us all. You know, you go through that phase where it's just goals, night out, and that. You know, but what's very good with this show is how, and this touches on another thing, how Eddie acts, played by Darius McKay, because there's a strong positive role model figure, or played by the father Winslow, Carl Winslow. He's there to basically, you know, look out and watch over Eddie. You know, if Carl Winslow wasn't there, there's a lot of stuff Eddie could have been manipulating to doing, like the dark things that are always attached to like the you know, the black, you know, regime, you know, of them young black kids growing up. You know, sometimes they get absorbed by the street life, you know. But where it was nice is when you've got that father who didn't like run out, you know what I mean, but was there to take care of his, you know, son as he was growing up. He was able to like, you know, focus on the mind. Like, for instance, later on in the season, there's an episode where Eddie starts drinking alcohol, you know what I mean, and he starts coming in the house late and all that, you know. And you know, Carl gets really said, he gets him straight to the point. He says, you know, if this continues, you're out of the house, man. You know what I mean? And you don't make any kind of you know, like trying to come back and that, you know, you that's it, you're done. So it's very, very firm, and it's like, you know, he's trying to make him responsible, you know, because that kind of thing, if I'm not here, you're going to be the man to take care of this family. And if not to take care of this family, your own family, you know. And it's like the amount of negative flack that black people, black men specifically, were getting around that time of, you know, gang banging, multiple baby mothers and that. He didn't want to see his own son go through that experience, you know what I mean? So he made sure he was very straight to the point, you know, of like, you know, sewing the role on these girls things, you know, focusing on this education, you know, getting like a good, well, you know, managed job in the future, you know, focusing on your talent rather than this whole like, you know, nonsense and that, man. So like it's their relationship's very, you know, strong and pivotal. On the flip side, Laura is there, and Laura is very like you know, played by Keely Cheyenne Williams. Laura is actually cool. Like she's a straight A student. She doesn't really cause too much, you know, how can I say, like you know, like harm. Obviously, as not Steve, you know what I mean. So she's not. She's very similar to Tatiana Ali in Fresh Prince. You know, if I say, you know how I made that comparison of like, you know, what's it, Tanisha Arnold and Erika Alexander from Living Single and Fresh Prince. You know, they kind of like match each other the way how they like. She's Laura Winslow is very similar to Tatiana. Keely Williams is very similar to Tatiana, and I think roughly they were roughly the same age whilst they were going through these shows and that. So they're cool. They're very innocent. You know what I mean? They're not, you know, shaking their money makers like at the end. You know, there's some episodes where, you know, Laura, because like I said, she's growing up and she just sometimes just wants to have these new experiences. You know what I mean? Like she obviously likes boys when she's growing up. She knows she likes these like bigger men that are their age and that. But like I said, Carl Winslow, because like I said, because it's so important that in these black families that the dad is there to kind of hold structure to this household. You know, she never has to, you know, go out of, line. You know, she doesn't go in because, like I said, some of these girls, you know, you keep on saying, want, you know, I hate to mention, but like some girls, my, you know, exes that I've been with, some of them have already been messed up and mixed because there wasn't like a, you know, a strong, positive father figure to say, no, this is not wrong. I know how some boys are like in my age and sometimes what they want to do with you. Some of them, they don't want to take responsibility, you know, so you just got to wait until you find the right guy, you know. And with that, you can see later, during the later season, she starts to become more responsible, you know. It's like she can be, you know, trusted, you know, to think on her own, you know. So like I ain't gonna lie, man, because like after having the Family Matters DVD, this is not a show that I've watched extensively, you know. You know what I mean? Like I know an episode straight. You just have to tell me the name of like a theme that's going on. You know, like a theme that's going on. Like you know, when Will Smith was and Carlton were trying to get a date from the prom, you know, I already know the name of the episode. Someday your Fresh Prince will be in effect, you know, because I've seen Fresh Prince more than Kim K has seen Black Men, you know, that's all I can think of, you know what I mean? But like I've seen that show over and over again, so I've already know the episodes. Family Matters, I've only been like lucky to watch it like from start to finish you know, just one straight through. So it's not a show that I'm the best. There's even some scenes I'm not seeing, you know, because like I said, what I love with this and obviously the other black sitcoms around that time, they involved like a lot of like multiple black guest stars, you know, appeared in this. You know, Vanessa Williams plays from this, you know, a few notable basketball players during the time, you know, not the, you know, Air Jordan, he didn't appear, but a few, I think even Scottie Pippen appeared in this, correct me if I'm wrong, but like a few notable, James Avery, you know, he appeared in one, he played Uncle Phil, you know, he appeared in one of the episodes, so they had a lot of like crossovers, you know. I remember even Steve Urkel, he appeared in the Caucasian show Full House, you know, with John Stamos and the Olsen twins, you know. So, you know, like the other sitcoms, you know, it crossed over, you know what I mean. So there's a lot of episodes which, you know, if I do get time, you know, I would love to watch it through again, you know what I mean. But it's like you The episodes, and this is where I became an even more fan. The episodes that I got more into is, okay, somewhere within the fifth season. So Steve Urkel's still the same way, just annoying, corny, the worst guy to ever introduce to your parents, you know what I mean? Good heart, but just like, you can't be around him. In season 5, there was this idea to take the most nerdiest guy on the planet and make him the coolest guy in the universe. We're gonna make Steve Urkel, Four Eyes, slipping on baloney, cannot speak to a woman more than 5 seconds, and we're gonna make him suave, cool, debonair, good-looking guy, Stefano Urkel. Now, like, as you can see, like, I'm pretty sure if you're checking my channel, you've seen a lot of stuff where I put like it's a shame I don't have a picture of it, because like this is the second season. My man Stefano Urkel was introduced in season 5, so this was 3 seasons after this one. So like, as I, because this is the second season and I do have the other seasons, obviously it's just not in this DVD format. I saw the introduction to Stefano Urkel, which is my personal favorite episode. I think it's called Dr. Urkel Mr. Cool. You have to correct me if I'm wrong. It's the first few couple episodes in season 5, where basically, in the early part of the episode, again, they're in the diner. lWinslow, because she's a cheerleader, she's a popular girl. She's just with her girls chilling, and Steve Urkel's working there as a waiter. He ends up goofing off again, and he drops like the whole, I think he has a milkshake and pizza. He drops it onto lWinslow. And Laura gets so angry. He said, "What is it with you? Why are you so clumsy? Why do you suck?" You know what I mean? And just like, if only you could be different. And Steve, because like I said, Steve is which I forgot to mention, Steve, Joe White in this place, Steve, he's a very intellectual genius. He's basically like Dexter in Laboratory, but he's just an introvert, man. But he's super, super intelligent. He comes up with the idea to make this. At the start, it's like a chemical, which basically, if he drinks it, he'll become, as he says, cool. You know what I mean? So like, there's like great episodes where he goes to Laura, and I made another one, and I made another one, and I duplicated. He starts laughing maniacally. And he basically, in front of him, Laura, that great scene, he drinks it, and, he has this transformation. You know what I mean? And this is where you really, really got to commend Jaleel White's, like, acting skills. From what I've seen, when I see Stefano Urkel and Steve Urkel, it's like two different actors are playing them. You know what I mean? It's the most craziest transformation I've ever seen on television, man. You know what I mean? Like a Dr. Jekyll and Dr. Hyde thing, man. It's like the most, like, how is the same actor playing these two characters, and it's a really bombastic episode. That first episode, even Jaleel White even said in late interviews, when he opens the door, and I have this on one of my videos, he opens the door and the studio audience see him. He has the shades. He has that trademark white, blazer and white pants, and Louis Vuitton, like the nice shoes, slacks, big scream, mostly with all the ladies and that, and he comes in and they just like, please party on, party on. It is so cool, you know what I mean? Like, and when he does that great, like, dance, it was, Babyface for the Cool of You, which is, a masterful theme, and he does that. That's because he's only in that bit for he's only in that bit for like a short he's only in that bit for like a short remainder of the episode, but like, even with the time given, it's so effective, man. Like, it's like you just cannot believe this guy was playing Steve, how he plays Stefan, man. And it's a great episode. It's my favorite episode, that first appearance of him was a monumental, successful episode, and he actually reappears again in the later end of the 5th season, because led to the climax of season 5, which is called Stefan Returns, where, Steve changes the the chemical tube he had, to now he has like a machine, transformation machine where he can go in there as Steve, basically go in there as the nerd and come in there cool. He even works at Carl Winslow's one episode, I think near the end, Carl Winslow's mother goes in there and she comes out as a beautiful woman as Carcel Vase, so it basically takes like the weakness out of you and brings out all the good stuff, so I wonder if I went there a poor man, would I become a rich man? I need to contact Steve. But yeah, he changes into Stefan again in the latest season, and it's just like, the closest thing I compare Stefan Urkel is to how Dwayne Johnson playing The Rock in that late 90s period, what I mean, where he was wearing all these flashy tops, these cool shades, dressed so well, but it was just very, very smooth. He made himself kind of larger than life. Like, you're watching this show, like you're watching WWF, and you already know that this is the best. This is the main star. And it's like when Stefan was there, and it's really a shame because he's only in it for a short amount of episodes. There's he appears in the main episodes of the shows. I mean, like there's the one like they go to Disneyland, there's the one when they go to Paris, Stefan appears in that, but it's like he's in and out of the series, after he appears, but definitely the closest thing I've said to Stefan Urkel is to, Dwayne Johnson playing, The Rock, at the height of WWF's peak, what I mean? And like speaking of like characters, I will go back to, like like Girls' Dreams, Stefan Urkel, what was very good, as I said about Jalil White, he was good at playing different characters. Steve Urkel, I can't name all of them, but at least one. He also played Myrtle Urkel, which was, Steve, Jalil White cross-dressed as a woman, which would basically be Steve's annoying cousin, who had that accent, So he played Myrtle Urkel, which was cool. She appears in some episodes with Stefan as well. There's one where they do that kind of like dating show, where they all appears and that. Yeah, that cool show where like there's Steve, Stefan, of course, then Merle comes in, Eddie, Laura, and I forgot to mention Michelle Thomas, who played Myra in this show, God rest her soul, she unfortunately passed away, I think after the season had just ended in 1998, so, rest in soul. She was playing as Steve's girlfriend for the majority of the season, even though Steve was madly in love with Laura, Myra was madly in love with Steve, which is cool, because it was with Laura was in love with Stefan, but Myra was in love with Steve, what I mean? Then how it works out at the end is after Myra, exits, like, the series, Laura ends up, marrying Steve, which I never ever got that at the end, but yeah, and then like, Steve ends up with his one-shot characters, he plays like Bruce Lee, legendary Bruce Lee, Enter the Dragon, he plays like Elvis Presley. I'm pretty sure he does like kind of like impersonation of like James Brown, Bobby Brown, a few of like these notable superstars, which without no one even saying it. So it's a great way how they kind of showcases Jalil White's talent, because he's a performer, that's the one best way to describe Jalil White. He's a great, fantastic performer who puts out all this energy, to entertain, what I mean? As like, when he was, transcending onto, going on to like Dancing with the Stars, what I mean? He's a very, very big entertainer, and, when you do watch it from like at the beginning of the show to the end, you just see like, like I said, and I may have mentioned this before, I think where the issue with like all those characters, like I said, what is very good, like, with Family Matters is, like the show says, it's family, there are, like I said, there are some certain episodes where, they obviously treat it serious. There's an episode where, the N-word's used for the, the first time, how they deal with that, like a gun, a pistol being brought to school, you know what I mean? So they had these kind of advocate, episodes, which were to say, like down on like, obviously like, police brutality, obviously safe, sex, you know what I mean? And they could be like, they could have them, political episodes, but it wasn't to the extent of like a different world, which was like really strong with, conveying like a strong message, it just had them episodes which were, like, Fresh Prince, which is, it's like a fun and it's happy, enjoyable family show, but they could touch on them, dark subjects, which was really terrific. But yeah, man, like I said, man, to go through, like I said, I only wish like I've watched this, more. I am, now that I picked this up, I really do want to watch this more, because like I said, to go through all the episodes is crazy, man. For 9 seasons, like I said, the only thing compared to this that this man's season is Seinfeld. And I can't stand Seinfeld. Man's never gonna review Seinfeld because I don't need Seinfeld. You know what I mean? Yeah, but yeah, man, it's just a nice, like I said, with this show, it's just a very good blend of like, Steve Urkel's, because like I said, when Steve Urkel comes in this, they probably should just change it to Steve Maz after he appears in this, because the focus, because like I said, that's the main principal characters. That was who I was talking about. Richie, who ends up growing up, and that was the two who disappeared. I think that was Rachel Fink, who was the sister to either Carl or, the wife, and also the daughter, who, they disappeared through mid-season. You got Eddie and Laura there, but it's like the focus mainly is on Steve, and these were meant to be the principal cast, you know what I mean? So, it is kind of thing like, what would, if you took Jaleel White out of the show, what would you have? You know what I mean? It really, he is such a pivotal part for this show's like continuing success and continued success. And this is where I was leading on. Talking about like Jaleel White as the actor, I think he fell into this kind of situation where a lot of like these young child actors fall into it happened to, with Macaulay Culkin, Home Alone, I think with Lindsay Lohan, and also like, Miley Cyrus. Of they start off in this young kind of child actor, and once they actually grow up into adulthood, they're remembered as how they were when they were young. Like Macaulay Culkin is always going to be remembered as a sweet little boy in Home Alone. Very similar to how like to Hollywood, Jaleel White's always going to be remembered as Steve Urkel. And this becomes a very big like kind of situation of like when they're going for these Hollywood films, even though you're going for these auditions and that, the director is always gonna remember you as did I do that, and because he literally, grew up in this show, what I mean? It gives such a long lasting impression that it's not Jaleel White playing Steve Urkel. Steve Urkel is Jaleel White, where Will Smith and Martin had the kind of benefit, because basically in that show they were basically playing themselves, man. You know what I mean? It wasn't like, Will was coming into work and saying like, I've got to wear suspenders, glasses, I've got to, dress up as a nerd. It was Will Smith, trying to land in the acting, but he was basically playing himself. Similar how Martin, Lawrence was playing in Martin. That's 90% that's him. Even the girls in Living Single, there's acting there, but Queen Latifah, that's how, that's basically her character. Mark Curry and Hanging Mr. Cooper, they're playing himself. Jaleel White was the only one of them black sitcoms who had to change himself, always keep changing himself to be these different characters, you know what I mean? So you didn't really see too much of Jaleel White, probably more like when it was Stefan, but again, Stefan was like, he was still trying to put this kind of extra version of coolness, Stefan was probably the closest to Jaleel White, you know what I mean? But like, again, Stefan appears only, from season 5, he only appears like maybe a handful amount of times after his first appearance, It's still dominated from season 1 to season 9 of 10 years of seeing suspenders and high pants, You know what I mean? So I don't know what like people saying that, but I think this kind of you know, I'm not gonna say damage, but I did think it did kind of hurt Jalil's White. You know, obviously moving on to doing what Will Smith did and doing what Martin Lawrence did and doing what them other successful television actors, you know, moving on to the next step. You know, I think he got locked in of playing a character who was at one point, you know, great. You know what I mean? But sometimes you gotta know when when the shows got, you know what I mean, like when it's time to move on to the next step, kind of like, with in WWE, because I'm a big wrestling fan, with like, John Cena at that time, playing that hustle, loyalty, respect character, you play that for a certain amount of time, it's gonna get old. It will dry out, man. That's like with anything. Sometimes you need a refresher, and the problem is if you keep playing that, once you get into that elite level of, okay, cool, we're we're gonna make a new Black Panther film, and Jaleel White auditions, the casting people, you believe me, it probably does happen. The casting people will be like, I can't take this guy seriously. This is the guy who was wearing them suspenders for 10 years. Yeah, man, as I've always done, pretty much like I'll talk about like the soundtrack, how it is in this is because, like I said, this is very different, obviously, to Martin and the Fresh Prince. I'd say it's definitely a step lower, because, like I said, it's definitely more of a family oriented show, where Martin was more of the humor and Fresh Prince was more of that kind of hip hop essence of the 90s. This just touched on more family values. So kind of like the music you would see in like Cosby Show, The Jeffersons, and Sanford Son. If you put that theme like music into what is in the 90s at that time, of that harmony, family, happily ever, that kind of Disney. And it's funny, the episode when they do go to Disney World, there's a lot of the music that you would see in the famous Disney movies like Aladdin and Hercules is implemented in this show. A lot of it feels like sometimes a live action, a Disney, television show, like a live animated action of like a Disney film. So it has like a lot of them kind of themes in there, which I'm a big fan of Disney. You know what I mean? But it's just obviously it's a major difference, watching Martin and this, like. Mine is definitely more of an adult show. I think of all the 90s black sitcoms, that is raw. That is Def Comedy Jam raw. Where this is like the flip side, this is more of like the the nice kind of convenience times of living in Chicago, not that kind of rough, rigid and raw era, which like I said, it works well, man, because like I said, Family Matters is a show like in the future, if I do have like in the future I do have kids someday, I would love to like sit down, as they're growing up, to watch, Family Matters, rather than this nonsense reality stuff, man. Like they can, watch this and learn about like good, I have to say good family values about, sticking together, and growing up strong. So like, man, like who would I recommend this to, man? This is alright. This is if you have my opinion on it. I ain't gonna lie. When I did, because like I said, I watched it from the start. I remember I got this around Christmas time. Like I didn't watch this through the 90s. It was after. I got this around the Christmas time about 3 years ago. 2015. Yeah, about 3-4 years ago. So I had the whole box and I just watched it through Christmas. And like I said, you watch the first 4 seasons. It's very, very Mickey Mouse, you know what I mean? It's like watching The Sweet Life of Zack Cody. And for a guy who's like in his 20s, I kind of wanted something more kind of cool, more just more like mature. So when Stefan pops in like in season 5, and I saw this like super uber cool character, that's when I started to pick on more. You know what I mean? And it's like I did start to see the shift. You know what I mean? When Stefan came in, they even had a cool episode where they had a Halloween episode when Steve Urkel has a puppet, and he's trying to take over the house. That's a that's a great episode as well. Kind of like it mirrored like what Chucky and Child's Play. So they did have more kind of mature episode when Stefan comes in, and that's mid-season. What I mean? But is it too little too late? I don't know. But I just think like for me personally, like Family Matters is not a show that I would definitely like, be running to go back to. If I do go back to it, it's just to see these episodes with Stefan, because Stefan was in the best episodes. Like, I've always had a dream to go to Disneyland, Florida, and trust me, what Richie Rich says, Richie Rich does. After seeing that episode, when they do go there, it makes me wanna, go there even more. You know what I mean? Like, that's definitely on my bucket list, man. And like the episode where they were in France, I've been Paris plenty of times. So it's really nice when you see them go to places where you've already been. You see like the Eiffel Tower, and you're like, oh yeah, I remember when I was there. You know what I mean? Like, it's really cool. And yeah, I just love like the episode. Speaking on like, all right, we're speaking with Stefan. I think where Stefan kind of ran out his course is he kept on appearing and disappearing. You know what I mean? When he first comes, he doesn't appear to the end season. Then they do this whole thing of like, oh, if Clark Kent changes to Superman, that's how Stefan was used, man. Like there was one time where, Steve Urkel, he crashed into the Winslow family house and he broke it, and he had to get a job basically as a performer, musical performer. And he went there, Steve, and people were viewing it saying, no, we need someone charismatic, we need someone cool. Then he changes, he changes to Stefan. So he was always kind of laying around. He was used this kind of plot device, if Steve can't do it, let's do Stefan. Where I would prefer, because I do know later on, like, they separate both of them, Steve had a thing, like, he cloned himself, and he was able to make a Stefan and Steve. And that was right at the end, where it just became, it became so, childish of just seeing the different characters, where it would have been cool if Stefan was first introduced. I'm not saying he had to be in every episode, but it would have been cool if he was just more of a regular, towards the end, because you can even see near the end, lWinslow, even though she madly loves Stefan, she kind of loses taste with him, because I remember there's one time he ends up becoming a model in this, and he leaves Laura. Then in the meantime, Laura already found someone else, because it was always that he was there, he wasn't there, he was there, he wasn't there, he was there, and guess what? He wasn't there. He was always in and out of the show until, the final episode, and for someone who really loves Stefan, they may get very irritated because you're waiting like, when's this person going to appear? And you get stuck with Steve all the time. Well, no one's saying nothing to do with Steve. It's just that when you've seen him from, the early 90s to the late 90s, like that, too much. Sometimes it can be too much of Steve, But yeah, with that being said, I would say like, man, if anyone, I would say, man, if anyone really loves the Cosby Show, I'm gonna put up my hand. I'm not a fan of like the Cosby Show. I've watched it. It's just not my taste. I prefer Different World. That's way more up my street. What I mean? So if anyone's a fan of them kind of family oriented, like closest thing to this is My Wife and Kids. The not the first couple, because the first couple seasons, My Wife and Kids are good. Then later seasons with Franklin and No, or Calvin, all that stuff that was going on in the later seasons, that's probably closer to this, that kind of, Sesame Street kind of like live action family TV show. If you like them, My Wife and Kids, you want to take a step back in time and take something that's also similar, try this out, man. You would probably, love this too, and you'll probably find out that family does indeed matter. Yes, man. So guys, man, that's my review of Family Matters. Please let me know if anyone has seen like, a few episodes. Let me know what you thought of Steve Urkel and, my main man Stefan Urkel. Let me know like how you felt like, the premise of the show. Like, did you think the show went too longer than it needed to? It should have ended quicker, or you thought it was the right amount of duration for that lengthy show. You know, let me know like what you think of Jaleel White as like, you know, an actor. You know what I mean? And yeah, man, stay tuned, man. I'm gonna be doing like another, you know, classic 90 review from the 90s very, very soon. But ladies and gentlemen, when that time certainly and most definitely arrives, I assure you that Richie Rich will be back yet again. Peace to fingers.
Family.